All of the rising and being seated during our shofar service was meant to make sure you're all awake by the time we get to my sermon. So I'd like to share as I prepare to begin that this reading stand I use, I know we've shared this in the past, has particular meaning to me today as I stand on the shoulders of those who came before me. And this happens to be Rabbi Haberman's reading stand. And I'm honored to follow in the footsteps of the six before me, though different shoes. But I already alluded to that earlier. A story is told of a mother who goes into her son's room and tells him it's time to get up to go to services. And her son whines at her. He's complaining that he's too tired and he wants to sleep in just this one morning. This is not a true story from my home. Just Jacob's not here to defend himself, so I need to make that clear. "I'm sorry," said his mother, "but you'll have to go." And this time the son pulls the covers over his head and he says, "I refuse." And the mother, growing more impatient, pulls the covers down and demands that he get out of bed, get dressed, and go. And at this point, very bothered, the son asks why. And the mother says, "I'll give you two reasons. Number one, you're 53 years old. Number two, you're the rabbi." So that was certainly not this rabbi's reaction today. I am so excited to be standing here as your senior rabbi after more than 21 years of rising daily, enthusiastically, with love to serve this wonderful community. And after these past few years, I recognize that we all have had times in our lives when we wish we could just stay home, curled up in our favorite spot with a warm blanket and a cup of tea or coffee. People often ask, "When did you know you wanted to be a rabbi?" I knew at 16 years old. My grandfather was my rabbi, and during one of my last visits with him when he was in the hospital, I shared my thoughts and dreams of one day following in his footsteps. It was one of the last conversations I had with him, and it was one of the most meaningful of my life. It was only many years later that my parents shared the day that they realized I would follow in his footsteps had occurred much earlier. It was Yom Kippur afternoon, 1972, in the middle of the children's service. The Webster Avenue Sanctuary of Temple Israel of New Rochelle was packed. I couldn't wait any longer. As soon as we reached the aisle, my mother, then 7 months pregnant, began to lead me towards the rear of the sanctuary, and I pulled on her arm impatiently in an effort to change directions, knowing full well that there was a bathroom in the rabbi study located behind the bima. My mother gently pulled me back, hoping that I would willingly follow, and I stopped dead in my tracks, oblivious to the fact that my grandfather, Rabbi Jacob Shankman, was in the middle of his sermon. In a booming voice, as my mother recalls, I broke the hush. "No, I want to go where Papa is." My mother was mortified, to say the least, but my grandfather calmly peered down from the pulpit and he reassured the congregation and said, "It's perfectly okay, don't worry. This happens all the time. This time it just happens to be my own granddaughter." I didn't fully realize the significance my words would hold in eventually leading to my decision to pursue a career in the rabbinate. To me, it always seemed as though becoming a rabbi was not a profession I had chosen. Rather, it was something to which I felt called. I feel incredibly blessed. I stand before you the product of generations of rabbis. Papa Jake traced rabbis on both sides of his family back to the 14th century. And while my grandfather certainly played a big role in inspiring my journey, my father, who chose a different path, provided the inspiration for how and what I would choose. When he started at NYU, he joined ROTC, and faced with the choice of Air Force or Army, he nonchalantly asked the counselor, "What's the difference? I mean, aside from the obvious." And the counselor responded, "I don't know, one's a blue uniform, one's a green uniform." And my dad said, "I'll take the blue uniform." He fell in love with flying, and he always said it brought him closer to God. Most significant were the words he often shared when I was growing up. He would say, "I can't believe someone pays me to fly airplanes. If you love what you do, it will never feel like a job." From my first days at Washington Hebrew Congregation, I have felt blessed every day to serve as a rabbi of this congregation, and my heart is full as I stand before you this year as your senior rabbi. Rosh HaShanah provides the perfect opportunity for us to reflect upon our individual personal connections to Washington Hebrew, our commitment to each other as members of this community, and the bright and inspiring future we are going to build for the generations who will follow. Many of you may be familiar with the I Am From poetry project, inspired by the author and teacher George Ella Lyon, which has been used by teachers around the country and in our own community as a method through which students share where they are from and provide insight and images that help illustrate their core essence. My daughter Evie recently created such a poem to introduce herself to her English teacher, and it inspired me as I contemplated what Washington Hebrew Congregation and you mean to me. I am from the processional statues in Krieger Lobby, from the Congressional Charter and the menorah in front of Macomb Street. I am from confirmation photos and history that line the walls, and sunlight filtering through stained glass windows on Rosh HaShanah morning. I am from the dogwood tree outside my office window, whose white flowers always bloom in the week leading up to confirmation, and from the maple trees along the driveway at the Julia Bindeman Suburban Center, whose golden and red leaves herald autumn's arrival. I am from Cami Lorne Nathanson Kiddush cups and candles in the sand tables. From a long line of WHC senior rabbis, Stern, Simon, Gerstenfeld, Haberman, Weinberg, and Lustig. From the dedicated staff who care for each one of us and our buildings. I am from Macomb Street Shabbat and Falls Road Shabbat, from brisket and kugel bake-offs and Blanca brownies at Oneg, from Mitzvah Day, Sunday stuffings, and MLK Workday, and from Dancing with the Torah, dreidel spinning competitions and edible dreidels, Purim spiels, and Purim carnivals. I am from standing under the portico at Macomb and Bindeman on rainy mornings during religious school drop-off, and from singing, clapping, and dancing at Shabbat Sings, Tot Shabbats, fun fairs, and more. I am from the sacred moments we share, moments of joy and sadness, moments of learning and discovery, moments of engagement and connection, ordinary moments when we experience holiness and a sense of belonging. I am from each one of you, for together we are Washington Hebrew Congregation. On Rosh HaShanah, we recall the very beginning, when God created the world. I first learned about the mystic Isaac Luria about 30 years ago while studying at the University of Chicago Divinity School. The Ari, as he was commonly known, was a famous 16th century Kabbalist who lived in the mountaintop city of Tzfat in northern Israel. He taught that our task on earth is to bring holiness into the world, which we can best understand, he taught, through the story of creation. Rabbi Luria explained that when the world was created, God formed vessels to hold the divine light, but God's light was too powerful, and the light that was meant to radiate and illuminate the world with holiness burst forth, and those vessels exploded into shards. And that force blasted sparks of divine light throughout our world. These holy sparks became embedded in the material world around us, and our task is to free those sparks and allow God's presence to bring light back into the world. We do that when we engage in acts of blessing, both spiritual and physical, and by liberating the sparks of holiness. We do that when we advocate for the unhoused, when we pack food and share it with those experiencing hunger, make blankets for those struggling to be warm due to illness, when we bring a meal to a friend or a fellow congregant who is unwell or in need of support. We free those divine sparks through physical acts as well as through our relationships with others, through acts of loving kindness, compassion, and social justice. We bring wholeness and holiness and the possibility of repair to that which is broken in our world. Today we go back to our collective beginning. As I reflect on Rabbi Luria's ideas, I recognize that those sparks of holiness are present in everything we do at Washington Hebrew Congregation. We experience sparks of holiness when we share the joy of Judaism through our vibrant celebrations of Shabbat and as we strive to enhance our worship experiences. Our clergy team continues to explore innovative ways of connecting spiritually while simultaneously engaging individuals to our community. And if you have not yet experienced our inspiring and engaging worship outside the high holidays, we hope that you will join us this year. We have transformed our services with Macomb Street Shabbat and Falls Road Shabbat while honoring our classical reform legacy, and we plan to expand further based on your enthusiastic response. Picture yourself walking into one of our buildings for one of these energetic Shabbats. As you enter, you have multiple opportunities to connect. You can join fellow congregants in Edlovich Hall to briefly engage with the week's Torah portion over beverages and a bite, or reconnect and make new connections in Krieger Lobby over a glass of wine and a nosh. We all come together to light candles and then sing our way into the chapel or sanctuary with our incredible Macomb Street and Falls Road musicians, who bring heightened energy as they complement and enhance the voices of our cantors. We share our simchas and support those who have come to mourn. As a community, we welcome Shabbat into our hearts and our spiritual home. I feel sparks of holiness at each and every life cycle event I am blessed to share with you. Wrapping a newborn baby in a tallis and offering blessings, celebrating as a young person is called to the Torah for the first time as B'nai Mitzvah, children of the commandments, standing under the chuppah with brides and grooms at that intimate moment of commitment, holding those who have lost loved ones and supporting them in their grief, and escorting the mourners back into life. Standing beside someone who has committed themselves to the Jewish people and holds aloft the Torah for the first time at the moment they first recite the Shema as a Jew. And I feel sparks of holiness when I have had the privilege to join in multiple life cycle events and moments with you, even more so. Watching families' lives and legacies unfold has been one of the most rewarding and most powerful aspects of sharing these many years as one of your rabbis. What a blessing. Together we encounter those sparks of holiness when we reach out to one another in support and love. Time and again, so many of you contribute to the creation of a caring, compassionate, inclusive community in which everyone feels seen, heard, valued, and loved. So many of you have reached out to connect with new members while simultaneously strengthening relationships with longtime friends. When you engage in any of our ever-growing list of auxiliaries, affinity groups, youth groups, and now WHC connections, you contribute to the depth and diversity of our congregation. We discover those sparks of holiness when we pursue Jewish knowledge and wisdom together, learning at every age and every stage. In our early childhood classrooms, in our religious school tefillah, on the 9th grade sexuality retreat, in confirmation, in Torah study, Wednesday study, Amram Scholar Series, 12JQ, Academy, and the list goes on of many, many learning opportunities that we have shared over the years and will continue to share. I witness those sparks of holiness when we demonstrate our commitment to living our Jewish values through acts of tikkun olam. When we study, engage, and act to ensure that equity runs through every thread and every fiber of the beautiful tapestry that is Washington Hebrew congregation. When we pray as if everything depends upon God and act as if everything depends upon us. When we pray with our feet by standing up for the voiceless and acting as God's partners in repairing the broken pieces of our world. When we join with our brothers and sisters in faith who share our commitment to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, house the unhoused, and create a world that reflects the divine image in which each one of us was created. I find those sparks of holiness in the excitement and enthusiasm you bring as you enter our buildings each and every high holy day season, reflecting and promising. And I also invite you to consider your own meaningful moments and connections to WHC, and I hope you will share them with us in the coming weeks as you will find opportunities to do so in our follow-up to the high holy days. On Rosh HaShanah, we reflect, and we simultaneously turn to the future. As we do so, I ask each of you, what do you want our community? What do you want Washington Hebrew Congregation to be? Even in the midst of celebrating our 170th year, we look toward our 175th. Let's take the time together to ask who we want to be and examine every aspect of who we are and how we are viewed, both inside and out. From our programming and worship to the physical buildings we call home, we have a unique opportunity over these next 5 years to consciously decide our path forward and ensure that we will continue to be a vibrant and warm community well into the future. We need Washington Hebrew Congregation, and we need one another. Just look at what is happening in our chaotic world. We can't help but reflect on the past 2.5 years, and while we find ourselves at a much different place than the high holidays of the previous 2 years, there is still so much uncertainty. So many of us are struggling with anxiety and loneliness. Less than a week ago, the New York Times reported that an advisory group called the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force recommended that doctors screen all adult patients under 65 for anxiety. We are clearly in need of spiritual input in a world that is bombarding us with negativity, fear, and division. While vaccines and boosters can help protect us against COVID, our Judaism, through engagement and involvement here at Washington Hebrew, can provide us with the deep healing, strength, and resilience that so many of us seek. One of my favorite stories tells of a mountain village in Europe many centuries ago where a nobleman wondered what his legacy would be, what might he leave for his townspeople. And at last he decided that he would build a synagogue. No one saw the plans for the building until it was finished. And when the people came for the first time, they marveled at its beauty, the beautiful high ceilings, the intricate carved wood on the ark, on the Aron HaKodesh, and the finely woven Torah covers. They admired how complete the synagogue was until someone noticed and asked, "Where are the lamps? How will the synagogue be lighted?" And the nobleman pointed to brackets that were all around the synagogue on the walls. And then he handed to each family a lamp, which he told them they were to bring with them each time they came to the synagogue. "Each time you are not here," he said, "that part of the synagogue will remain unlit." This is to remind you that whenever you fail to come here, especially when the community needs you, some part of God's house will be dark. This simple story powerfully illustrates the idea, Kol Yisrael aravim ze bazeh, all Israel is responsible for one another. We are not whole unless all are present. We need your voice, your presence, and your light. Bring your light, those sparks of divinity. Help us build a strong, vibrant community of connection here at WHC, and join us as we venture forth together to repair the world. That story also reminds me of that little girl standing in the middle of that packed sanctuary just over 50 years ago. And I am humbled to think of what that little girl tugging and pulling to go where Papa is would think, and what Papa Jake would think if they only knew. I am committed to making them both proud, along with each and every member of this sacred, historic, dynamic, and amazing community that I have called home for the past 21 years, and which I feel so incredibly blessed to now serve as your senior rabbi, something that little girl, and probably my grandfather as well, could not have imagined. On this Rosh HaShanah, I find inspiration in the words of Martin Buber, who taught, "In spite of all similarities, every living situation has, like a newborn child, a new face that has never been before and will never come again. It demands of you a reaction which cannot be prepared beforehand. It demands nothing of what is past. It demands presence, responsibility. It demands you. In this new year, 5783, bring your light, your heart, and your full self, and be present. Be from here. not just in word and prayer, but in thought, deed, and action. Welcome home to Washington Hebrew Congregation. May this be a place and community where each one of us experiences sparks of the divine and the lights of holiness. And together, may we bring that light out into the world, and may we find healing, wholeness, and peace. Amen.